Mr. Jawhar Sircar.
Honorable Chair, honorable members, it is my proud privilege to be following the budget debate after an honorable ex-Prime Minister of India. Though one was getting fidgety, one has to admit that if a current Prime Minister can get an indefinite amount of time to speak, the former Prime Ministers also deserve that amount of respect. And after all, everybody will become a former Prime Minister. When I look at Dr. Manmohan Singh, Mr. Devegowda, I'm reminded of I'm reminded of the grace that is necessary for the chair of the Prime Minister. Be that as it may, I would like to analyze, I tried to analyze the budget because it has been my job for a large part of my 40 years in service to prepare budgets and to understand them. There are hidden codes written by bureaucrats within budgets with no aspersions. But this one, I was one. That's what I'm saying. Now, having said that, this budget defies such an analysis. I wish I could describe it as insipid, tasteless, directionless, but I would be failing in my duties if I do not point out to the nation that this budget also carries the seeds of the perpetuation of inequality in a manner in which we have hardly ever seen before. It institutionalizes the difference between classes in India. Okay, just for figures, you are taking it up to 39.45 lakh crores. It's a record increase. But on the resource front, we find that receipts other than borrowals are in the range of 24 lakh crores. Now that is where the catch starts from, and I'll explain as I go along. The central tax revenue, you're keeping 19 lakh crores for yourself and giving states 8 lakh crores. This is not the place to discuss the state-centered devolution, but at some point of time, we must get together on this and change the basic structure. We cannot go on an inequitable structure. The only bad news is the good news. That is, on this investment, you are failing miserably. First of all, nobody gave you a right to sell off the assets that the nation created for 70 years, that much wanted 70 years, but you have failed in that. Inefficiency in this part also. Your budget was 1.7 lakh crores. You are doing 75 lakh crores. 1 lakh crore shortage on that. It impacts on the budget because you had booked that. National monetization pipeline that you announced with a lot of fanfare and aggression, 8,000 crores. You will hardly get 8,000 crores. So these impact the budget. These impact the budget. Nobody authorized you to sell off. But then there are two major worries. And I express this on behalf of the All India Trinamool Congress and on behalf of many right-thinking persons. That one is on the fiscal deficit. Mr. Chidambaram before me spoke of the fiscal deficit. And he mentioned the figure of 6.9% fiscal deficit. It is extraordinarily high, and it impacts on India's image before foreign investors that you keep talking about. 6.9. You will try to bring it to 6.4 this year. I doubt it. I doubt it. Now, there's an interesting part about how the receipts of the government come at the moment. Okay, this is just for refreshing. Corporate income tax or corporation tax gives us 7.2 lakh crores. Corporate income tax gives us 7.2 lakh crores. Income tax, with all the machinery and all the officers and all the powers, gives us 7 lakh crores, personal income tax. GST, the central part, is 7.8 lakh crores. And central excise that was taken up to rocketing high levels, mainly on petrol, gives us less than 4 lakh crores. So let us remember that the taxes are between 7 and 8 lakh crores, so the three major verticals of taxation. Number one, I shall bring forward 2 points here. One is about the fiscal deficit, which I already have mentioned, And immediately following that is the point of borrowal. The borrowals that are extremely dangerous for any nation. Your borrowals, you have increased by 130%. 130% the burden of borrowing since you came to power. You inherited an outstanding liability of 50% of the GDP, borrowing as a 50% of the GDP. That is what the other regime gave you. But you have taken that to 61% of the GDP. For God's sake, how will you pay back? Who will pay back? Which generation will pay back these amounts? 43% of all that we earn or gather goes to the servicing of interest. That means if I borrow, if I take 100 rupees, I have to give back 43% for my past suits, if I may. Individual allocations of budget I will not get into. Individual allocations, one thing that attracts my attention is on the budget of the housing and urban affairs. That has shot up from 54,000 crores last year to 74,000 crores within the year. You know where that money went. 20,000 crores went to the pandering of a gigantic ego in tinkering around with the Central Vista and other projects, including the ones that we have here. This money could have gone. This money could have gone for more proper roads. Okay. And this Central Vista can only come if we destroy all national institutions. The National Museum, the National Archives, the National Center for the Arts will all have to be destroyed so that 20,000 crores can be spent. And the buildings and visuals that I've seen, they represent the most mediocre form of aesthetics, if at all it can be called aesthetic. They look like solid. Anyway.
Have anybody seen that?
Yeah, I've seen the visuals. The visuals. They are obviously selected by someone. So, borrowing, you are now borrowing 5 lakh crores a year from small savings. You are frightening me. You are frightening the middle class. Will you be able to pay back? Or will I stop investing in small savings? You have to tell me that. Then the second worry is from the obscenity of richness that has overtaken India. I'm using the word the obscenity of richness. 142 billionaires, Mr. Chidambaram spoke before me, 142 billionaires, not 143. 142 billionaires have increased their wealth under this regime, 7.5 years, from 22 lakh crores. 22 lakh crores is 3 times what we pay by income tax every year. 22 lakh crores to not 44 lakh crores. They have gone up to 53 lakh crores. The cornering of wealth can only happen in a collusive legal order. It can only happen in a collusive order. Okay. Then 53 lakh crores. One more interesting news that has come out today itself in Bloomberg, and it came out 4 days ago in Forbes. These are the ones that keep track of the rich. They say that somebody's wealth, somebody who flew in, the Prime Minister to take oath, somebody's wealth has gone up from 42,000 crores when he brought him in that flight to 6.7 lakh crores. I think it's the highest rate of investment any businessman could ever do.
Why don't you name him? Why can't you name him?
I would not like to name anyone. Mr. Adani, okay, everybody knows. And I am quoting from the Forbes report and from the Bloomberg report. They say that it is in the range of 6.8 lakh crores from 42,000 crores. The stupendous reach. That's why I use the word the obscenity of wealth that again manifests itself through crazy tall buildings and all other luxuries. Top 100 corporate heads in India have jacked up their wealth from 35 lakh crores. That is 30% increase in 7 years. 30%. Can't part of it be skimmed off? Can't part of it be, can't they be forced to part with a part of it for the welfare of the nation that is getting pushed back and back and back?
Exactly.
When trains are burnt in Bihar and UP over recruitment, take that as an early sign. Don't take it as a law and order. Remember, India is burning within. The internal manifestations will burst out through similar incidents if you don't take caution. Don't take caution. I have seen the Naxalite movement break out during my college years. So wealth tax that even Mr. Chidambaram suggested, wealth tax should have been imposed last year and this year. Why aren't you imposing wealth tax? Without wealth tax, you cannot appropriate a part of the profits that you have facilitated through the systems. You can't do it. Okay. The thing that hits our eye is a slash in social sector spending. The social sector is being devastated by this insipid budget. Food subsidy has been slashed by 80,000 crores. True. 80,000 crores. Who authorized you to take away food from the mouths of the poor? The Prime Minister mentioned that I have reached food to 85 crore Indians. 85 crore Indians among 130 crore, India actually it's 135 crores. Out of 135 crore Indians, 85 crore Indians have received free food. Don't you realize that you're making an admission, an affidavit before this House that 85 crore Indians out of 135 are so poor that they line up for free food? Yes. That is the real poor? Yes. Not the statistics that you mentioned, but that is the real poor. Please remember. That is the best affidavit I heard today. On rural development, you are slashing it by about 15,000 crores. Health, 86,000 crores. India's investment in health is just 1.25% of the GDP. 1.25% of the GDP is one of the lowest in the world. Yes. Bhutan, Nepal, and others. 1.25%, and we have gone through this trauma where you talk of having done this and that, but the health budget has not gone up substantially.
Health Ministry is not listening.
For others,
he's not listening.
okay, the worst budget. Others are about 5%. 5%. Other countries of the world, go and check up my figures. We have reached such a pass that 10 crore Indians are on this very nervous, unstable slot. One illness can push them into poverty. It requires one illness to destroy a family. Yes. You have to understand this. When you facilitate the growth of wealth to such obscene levels, please remember that there are 10 to 15 crore Indians that fall back into poverty because our support systems were not good enough. Education, again 88,000 crore. Is this something worth talking about? Under Mr. Modi, this is the first time I'm mentioning his name, under Mr. Modi, the greatest credit is that education as a percentage of GDP has come down to below 1. Below 1. Below 1% of the GDP is spent on education. About less than 1%. And you took central education to below, I'm talking the central component of the education, 3.5% is being contributed by poor states that I talked about on devolution. Food subsidy I've mentioned is down by 87,000 crores. Narega, that great 100-day scheme. Our Chief Minister mentioned just yesterday that we in West Bengal need 8,000 crore man-days extra. What devastation has been done in this budget? From 1.11 lakh crores, which everybody knows is insufficient, and the stipulation and the calculations was that we should take it to 2.5 lakh crores this year. You have brought it down to 73,000 crores. Whom are you mocking? You have cut down Narega, this life soul of the poor. You are cutting down food subsidy, and I have given you descriptions of wealth. This is an anti-people budget, and my party has said that, along with many other parties, all the time. We need 8 crore man-days more. In any case, with 73,000 crores, what will you do? The pending bills are 22,000 crores.
Hardly 30 days it will.
So we will not be able to carry on.
16 days.
Okay, unemployment, labor participation rate is at 40%, one of the lowest in the world. And you talk of so many people coming under EPFO and others. These are manufactured figures. These are structural figures. Don't fall for them and don't fool yourself into a make-believe life. Don't delude yourself and take yourself to a fairyland where everything is all right. All is well, all is well. It's just not possible. Urban employment, rural employment are touching around 14%. Every year, we are getting 48 lakhs joining the workforce. And so far, we have been able to provide only 48, we are getting 48 lakhs joining the workforce. And we have been able to provide job for only 12 lakhs. Where will the remaining 36 lakhs go? Do you want Bihar train fires again? Now coming to the unkindest cut of all, woman and child. Children are our future. The palace, anyway, the children are our future. The child supplement, children's supplemental nutrition, children's supplementary nutrition was 8.3 crores when you came to power. Now it is 6.7.
Shame.
6.7. At 24% slash on the nutrition that goes into the mouths and stomachs of babies. Preschool education children in the last 5 years have come down from 3.4 crores to 2.3 crores.
Shame,
and you talk about education.
shame.
You talk about national new education policy. You give fancy slides. Get out of this charmed world of presenters and marketers. Anganwadi workers are about 26 lakhs and they get a miserable salary. They are the cutting edge of this government with the people, the cutting edge, the ones who serve. Anganwadi workers get a pittance. Their salary is around 10 to 12,000. Cooks and helpers who are there for the midday meals, cooks and helpers, they get 1,000 rupees salary, some 26 lakhs of them. Please look at them. Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Finance Minister, it is not a criticism, it's a humble request from our side and from our party's side. You want to look at what to do with the women and children? Come to my state. Come to my state. We don't talk of Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao and all that. We have Kanya Shri, under which lakhs and crores of disadvantaged women are driving to school or cycling to school every day. That cycle, those two wheels are the two wheels of empowerment. They are not just a mechanical. The National Child Labor Program, which was to save children from the clutches of exploitation, you have cut it down from 120 crores to 30 crores. What is this? Where is this 90 crores going to go? Where is it? Then, to repeat this anti-people budget, the points relating to the anti-people budget, I will just touch upon the fact that the jute industry is a natural ally to the statements that you have made in Glasgow, to the commitments that you have made in Glasgow. And the jute industry, the jute farmers and others, my colleague Dola Sen will also speak about it. I'm only touching on the point that you are tinkering around. You are tinkering around. You have declared an imaginary price of 6,500 rupees a quintal. 50,000 workers have been laid off. You please pay attention to it. Use jute for geofiber, for other things. It is a biodegradable fiber. On the other hand, you are supporting petroleum. You are supporting petroleum and plastics because some friend of yours has a monopoly on plastics.
Shame, shame,
On judiciary.
shame.
When we talk of the judicial system, that's another place where we all have to go. The judicial system is on the verge of breakdown. 35% of the High Court judge posts are vacant. 35%. They should have gone up by at least 50%. 60,000 cases are pending. The distribution, 4.10 lakh cases. What are we doing about it? Judiciary is hardly ever discussed in such matters. Therefore, I took this point to bring it up, because that is one point where we go for justice. You talk of capex as if it's a great thing. We have all dealt with it. The capex, you are intervening this year because the tax that you let off to the corporate sector, which amounts from 1.7 lakh crore, I'm repeating it, you have given the corporate sector undue tax benefits of 1.7 lakh crores. And they were supposed to give you capex, investments and jobs. They have given you nothing. They have gone in for personal enrichment of the type that I've just mentioned. Now you're talking. Because the private sector is a laggard, the government is forced to come in. LIC, I've spoken before, 38 to 40 lakh crores. Where is your investment in LIC? What have you ever given to LIC? LIC is a super efficient machinery that has worked on its own steam. You are wanting to dilute LIC in the interest of foreign insurers. That's all.
Shame.
MSME. MSME sector, I'm sentimental about it because I was the first development commissioner for MSMEs way back in 2007, and I've kept track of it. So don't come and tell me that MSME is thriving, that MSME is glorious. MSME has gone through problems, and the small entrepreneur knows how to tackle problems, but he doesn't know how to tackle problems that are artificially thrust on him, like demonetization. Like demonetization.
Shame.
You have shattered the MSME, the small and village industries, because of demonetization. And you have gained nothing from it. Now you're coming and saying MSME hamare. One of the reasons could be that those small traders who used to be the spinal cord of the support of a particular political party are not required anymore because big capital has come in through one route, and we don't require small capital. It's an insult. Okay. You are talking of startup, unicorn. Unicorn is that, the beast with that long horn, mythical beast. You are talking of myths.
Myths, yes.
81 unicorns, that means people who get 1 billion. What is a startup? You heard? Huh? What is a startup? Very simple. Look at Uber, Ola. With what we started and now what has happened. You look at the drivers who drive Uber, Ola. You look at the sales delivery, gig workers who come and deliver food to you for Swiggy. Don't you feel pity at the level of the exploitation? The entire wealth of startups is built on an exploitative system that takes away surplus value from them. You have to realize these things. Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Finance Minister, please realize that you're playing with fire to serve the interest of a handful, just a handful.
Shame.
This is the level of exploitation. We have to bring in an act. I know that you have passed the Gig Workers Act as part of the 4 labor codes. Nobody has even seen it properly. Nobody has even discussed it properly. Do not behave with it like you behaved with the farm laws and land up with an explosion that you can't control. You mentioned about Punjab agriculturists getting pleased. But you forgot to mention that the Punjab agriculturists were at the door. UP agriculturists were at the door of Delhi for 1 full year. So don't fool around with these dangers. Don't play around with fire. Don't play around. Your emphasis on startups and unicorns, that is unicorns at startups that have got a first-class first degree, that's all, is completely misplaced. Please give them support, but also ensure social equity. Also ensure social equity. The economics of my state that has yielded good results to the government is based on social equity, women's participation, women and scheduled castes and tribes. It is based on faith in the Muslim community also. So whatever be it. Now we have to understand that when you play around with these figures, you're playing around with fire. They are not figures that are typed out on an Excel sheet and put into your budget. Please extract each figure. Ask a question, why? Who does it benefit? Who does it benefit? and what was my alternate way of expending that money or realizing that money. You have to go in for a budget. 7 years to 8 years you have carried on in this manner. But time is ticking out. I started by mentioning that all the two ex-prime ministers I found are full of grace. All my members in the House will agree. I only hope that somebody else emerges full of grace at some other point of time. But right now, if we don't want to hasten that time, there is time to correct. Go in for midterm corrections. With these words, I oppose the budget submissions.
Thank you.